Welcome back to Race Report, everyone. That is the Belgium Grand Prix for 2022 over and done with. And boy, am I glad racing is back. The summer break is over. We are now racing to the finish line of the season. And Belgium was our first stop. But not only did they say that Belgium was the first stop, they also announced that Belgium would be on the calendar next year as well, which is a fantastic little extension there for us. Obviously, there is a lot of worry and a lot of speculation that Belgium might fall off the calendar, or might have fallen off the calendar for next year. Still a little worry that it won't continue on after that, but we'll deal with that next year. Belgium is back for 2023. Now, let's get stuck straight into qualifying, shall we? It was a bit of a weird qualifying session, I won't lie. We knew going into qualifying that maybe as many as 8 drivers were taking penalties of some sort, which made quali a bit of a weird one. So, I'm going to say some people might have gone out in Q1, but they might have actually ended up in the top 10 of the starting grid. Very strange. Here we go. Out in Q1, we actually had no teammates. We saw 6 different cars. We saw Bottas, Tsunoda, Magnussen, Latifi and Vettel all go out in Q1. Out in Q2, we saw Zhou, Schumacher and Stroll all out qualifying their teammates, but going out in Q2, as well as Gasly and Ricciardo, which meant we saw Alex Albon in Q3 in the Williams. He had a hell of a qualifying. Fantastic stuff. He managed to finish off qualifying in 9th position. But what can we say about Q3? It was a monster of a time put in by Max Verstappen. Absolutely huge time. One of the best laps around Spa. It was hugely intimidating. Sainz managed to get 2nd, Perez 3rd. But like I said earlier about the engine penalties, that affected Max Verstappen. He got the fastest time. He would not be in pole position. Leclerc was also affected. Ocon, Norris, Zhou, Schumacher, Tsunoda and Gasly also started at the back, but that was completely unplanned. So that meant our starting front 3 was actually Sainz on pole, his 2nd ever pole, well done to him, Perez P2 and then Alonso P3. The Alpines running very well at this circuit. So when we got the race underway, Sainz got a nice clear start. Brilliant from him. Alonso also got away very, very well up into P2. Perez dropped all the way back to 5th place at one stage. There was a bit of a scramble at the top of the hill though between Hamilton and Alonso, resulting in contact. Looked scary in the stills, but it was actually not too bad, I don't think, for Hamilton. He did have to retire as a result of damage to his car. Alonso also got some minor damage, but he didn't pit and he didn't retire. He just dealt with it over the course of the race. But that did also lose. That was a battle for 2nd position, so that lost Alonso obviously that place, and Hamilton obviously was never going to take that. We also saw at the start there Verstappen and Leclerc absolutely going for it. Of course, Verstappen's down in 14th. I think Leclerc was next to him on the grid. Those two were up to 8th and 10th respectively right after the first lap. Huge starts, absolutely massive. By lap 2, Perez was back up to 2nd place. He'd recovered, he'd got his place back. But then we saw Latifi spin, and it was just one of those mistakes, those lazy mistakes that we sometimes see Latifi make. He spun and he tagged the birthday boy. One thing you cannot do is tag the birthday boy, but he went and did it. He hit Bottas, spun him into a gravel trap. That's Bottas out of the race. Latifi was able to carry on, by the way, so that's a bit naughty. But that led to a safety car, because at that point we had Bottas beached in a gravel trap, and we had Hamilton parked up as well. So they sent out a full safety car, which lasted a good few laps while they cleared those 2 cars. We did see Charles Leclerc actually pit under the safety car for a weird one. A visor tear-off had got stuck in his brake duct, causing it to overheat. So it dropped him to the back of the grid. All his hard work at the start had been completely undone because of this visor tear-off that got stuck in a brake duct. Oh, it's crazy stuff. He got dropped to the back, and that's not the last we'd hear of that issue either. We once again had a really good, clean restart. We saw good battles, especially for 2nd and 3rd place. It was Quite an entertaining race from the overtaking aspect and from the fighting each other aspect. It was very, very fun. We also saw Verstappen continue to rise through the grid. Leclerc had a slower time coming from the back of the grid this time. He was still picking people off, just at a bit of a slower pace. The first round of pit stops start around lap 11 with Albon and Gasly coming in, and it's Sainz who pits from the lead on lap 12. He does come out in 6th place. Perez at that stage leads the Grand Prix, but not for very long as Max Verstappen overtakes him with ease on lap 12. That means Verstappen has gone from P14 to P1 in 12 laps. Some of those also were under a safety car. Don't know how he's done that, but he's done it. At this point, I took a mental note of actually Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll. They were running really well before the first stops. 4th and 5th place on lap 14 at one point. Really well done to them. That kind of came out of nowhere. I was like, wait, who's that? Where are they? So that was awesome to see. Once Sainz got his tyres up though, he was back in the fight. He got back up to 3rd very, very quickly. Some people did pit and get out of his way, obviously, but he did have to genuinely overtake people, and he did a good job there. We saw Perez pit on lap 15 from 2nd place to take his tyres off. He comes out in 3rd place, 1 place ahead of Charles Leclerc. They had a moment. They did have a moment. There was slight contact, but nothing came of it. The very next lap, we saw Verstappen pit to take his soft tyres off. Went to lap 16 on soft tyres. Very impressive. This promotes Sainz back into the lead, but Verstappen does come out still in 2nd place. So now it's just about hunting down. This is where we see the first of 2 massive overtakes Ocon does. Very impressive. Like those 2 times where he did this, going 3 abreast into a corner and Ocon comes out the winner. Both times, so he makes sure it's not a fluke. The first one, he overtakes Ricciardo and Latifi going into the final corner, 2 in 1. And then later in the race, he takes Vettel and Gasly down the Kemmel straight, 2 in 1. Very, very impressive from Ocon. Loved it. It was on lap 18 that we saw Verstappen catch and pass Carlos Sainz, and he was actually 3 seconds a lap quicker when he decided to go for it. He was just on a different level. He could have chosen when or wherever that overtake happened. Perez also overtook Sainz on lap 21, and both the Red Bulls just pull away at this point. The race is done. They've won it. Good job to them. You've got 20 laps to go to just celebrate, you know. They were just in a different league this race. Sainz is actually the one to start off the second round of pit stops. On lap 26, he goes onto the hard tyres. Leclerc actually comes in on the same lap. They've got a bit of distance between them, so they didn't have to double stack. So Sainz comes out in 4th place. Leclerc comes out in 7th. Verstappen does his second stop on lap 31, but at this point he had such a huge lead that he actually just comes out in 1st place. There was a little bit of cat and mouse toward the end between Sainz and Russell for 3rd and 4th place. Never really came to much. Russell would push, get within like a decent distance of Sainz, and Sainz would go, okay, well, I'm just going to keep you back there. And then he'd push a little bit as well. So nothing really came of it. Leclerc pits on the second to last lap to try and get the fastest lap. He puts on the soft tyres. He's going to go for the fastest lap, but surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, Ferrari made a strategic mistake and Alonso managed to get past on Leclerc's outlap. There wasn't a big enough gap for him to stop and get those tyres, and he was overtaken, costing him points whilst he's trying to get this 1 point for fastest lap. He does manage to get the place back, but has to sacrifice the fastest lap to do it. That is not all though. It turns out that the overheating brake duct they had from earlier in the race that I mentioned, due to that visor tear off, burned out a sensor, the pit lane speed limit sensor. So when he came in for this stop to get the fastest lap, he sped in the pit lane. He got a 5-second penalty after the race, which did drop him back behind Alonso. Ferrari royally screwed that up there. It kind of sums up Ferrari's strategy though. But anyway, of course, Verstappen wins. Max Verstappen wins the race very easily. Perez gets P2 on the day where the Red Bulls were simply unbeatable, and Sainz gets 3rd for Ferrari. It was something very special from Verstappen today. I don't think you can say anything else. Not just today. Saturday qualifying as well. Incredibly special laps, car setup, whatever you want to call it. Verstappen was the king. We also saw a great result from Alpine with both cars scoring points in a day that McLaren got nothing. So that fight for 4th place is firmly in Alpine's hands now. I did mention Sebastian Vettel being in a super advanced position that I wasn't expecting. He actually got good points. He finished in 8th place, so fair play to him. The retiring Sebastian Vettel doing a good job for Aston. And of course, I couldn't leave you without saying congratulations to Alex Albon, right? He got a point for Williams, yes. Huge race for him. Spa is becoming a good place for Williams drivers in recent years. A good car setup and well driven for sure. It was great to have racing back on our screens though, wasn't it? And it's not even stopping for a while. The next race is in the Netherlands and it's literally next week. But do you think the championship might have well been wrapped up today? I think it probably has. We've even seen Charles Leclerc drop out of 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship now. Perez has got him, and he's not far from losing a couple more places. Sainz could easily take one. Russell could easily take him now as well. It is just not gone Ferrari's way. It's not gone Leclerc's way. I think the championship is done. I think it's Red Bull's. I think it's Verstappen's. But we still have a ton of racing to go. So let's just enjoy ourselves, eh? What did you think of the race? Were you as impressed by Verstappen's drive as I was? Let me know in the comments or over on social media at Race Report Pod, and I will catch you in the next one.